All right, welcome back, everybody, to the umpteenth episode of the Pediatric Practice Management Awesome Cast. That's what I think we're stuck with right now. I'm here with Brandon. Brandon, say hello.
Hello, interwebs. I hope you guys are all doing well.
And our newest special guest star is Alan. I'll let Brandon introduce him in just 1 second. Alan's going to give us really going to deliver a great talk about web design. That's our focus today. If you're a small pediatric practice or even a large one, you must have a website at this point because it is 2013 after all. And Brandon went out and found an expert on developing websites, especially for businesses like this. And I will have Brandon introduce Alan because he's worked with Alan and tell us about Alan's background. And then Alan's just going to jump just right in and tell us what pediatric practices need to do to have good website design. So off to you, Brandon.
All right, thanks. So just a little bit of background on how I kind of came across Alan, because I think it has a it has a lot to do in terms of being present on the web. So I wanted to update our website. It had been there for a long time, and the website that we had was just very difficult to update. So I wanted to put like maybe, hey, we're going to be closing for the afternoon, or this is coming up, and I had to make these requests to the company that managed the website, specifically tell them what page, where, what area, and then they would go into 2 or 3 days, and then finally we'd get a note back saying okay, here are the changes, is this good? And then I would have to go back, and that wasn't working for me. And so I started looking for a web person or just a web company, and I started searching, and I happened to find Alan. And the cool thing about social media and all this other stuff is that I came across Alan, but I got a chance to see all of Alan's work, because Alan actually spends a lot of time online, and he puts a lot of his stuff out there. So that was a great opportunity for me to know when I reached out to Alan that he was in fact probably the person that's going to work for us, because I had already seen his presence online. So that's kind of the really quick story, and then on how I came down. So today what I want to do is talk a little bit about Alan in terms of what he does and how he helps company kind of have a great presence online. So that's my little intro. Alan, welcome to the Pediatric Awesome Cast. We're happy that you're on. We scheduled this a long time ago, didn't we? And we finally were able to do it today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled to be here. This is every time we've had it's usually a business related thing where you need me to do a little fix on your site, and we spend an hour and a half just talking about the latest stuff.
So tell me, first of all, then I guess just tell me who are you and what do you do exactly, so for the benefit of the people listening.
Yeah, so again, my name is Alan Hauser, and I'm a web designer. My company name is Squareflair, and I guess I can talk about why it's called Squareflair in a little bit. But I've kind of been doing web design since 2000, and kind of always focused on the front end or the design portion of websites. Always worked on with larger web teams and things like that, and about 5 or so years ago I started looking at all the various CMSs around, all the content management systems.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. What does CMS stand for?
I'll try to stay out of the nerd forest a little bit. No, I won't. I'll subtitle it. Yes, so a CMS, a content management system, is basically, you've probably heard of WordPress. There's several others. I mean, there's some very popular ones. There's some not so popular ones. The system I use is called Squarespace, and it's basically a way that people can have a website and manage it themselves. I mean, that's pretty much when you talk about content management system, you're talking about managing the content. So it's all about having that structure and the ability to click edit on some areas and make some changes and things like that. So that's what I focus on, are building Squarespace sites, and that's why the name Squareflair, because I bring flair to Squarespace.
Nice. I like that. Okay, so let's go back a little bit because I think that this content management system is very important because that was essentially the part that I was missing when I was describing me being frustrated with having to submit requests for our website to be changed. So when you say a content management system, is this something that I need to like learn a code for websites and then have to put in bold slash, make this bold the heading slash, all this stuff? So what does this content management exactly do for us?
Yeah. So no. As far as managing content, the entire goal is to make things easy for anyone to edit the system, and you know, it's probably to the level generally of like a word processor where you could type some text and then you could go back and format the text, and then there's other things to remember. You know, when we start talking about SEO and things like that and structure of the page, you always just try and remember a little bit of you know, there's a little bit of knowledge that has to come into play, like with headings, and you know, you're going to insert an image, and you know, there's some things like that, but systems today, and specifically Squarespace today, I mean, it's to the point now where they've made the tools so much better than a word processor that it's actually enjoyable to use, where word processors usually aren't. You know, it's just kind of like, I'm just putting text. But on a content management system, it's about there's like a structure, and there's more of like a layout. There's more of a almost like a I guess you could kind of say like a layout mode where you kind of consider like a bold heading and work your way down.
All right, so I think that you hit it on the nail when you said, okay, so it's more like a Word document where you have different, but you have places where you need to put. So instead of just writing the heading and then underneath the paragraph at the top, it'll say heading, and then you'll have a area to put the heading, and then underneath you'll have a part where it says here's the content, and then your paragraphs, and then maybe in the bottom something else. Okay, so and then you hit a button, and then it goes and it publishes it to the web, right? Right.
And actually too, I mean, there's a real benefit to feeling safe where you know you're not going to mess up things. I guess, you know, that's, you know, on even systems a few years ago, we would still like Dreamweaver and Contribute. I remember there was an Adobe product, and you could basically tell what areas that you could use, or you know, what areas to edit and what areas not to edit, and you could lock those things out with code. But today it's pretty much like you're punching a hole in the middle of a page, and you're not going to break anything on the outside. I mean, you're not going to mess up the navigation and do all that. You're just focused on that one task of adding content.
So if it's really easy and it's more like Word, and I would assume that the majority of people that are watching this know how to use Word and hit save and all this other stuff. So where exactly do you come into this whole thing? If it's so easy to do, then why do we need somebody like you to do this?
Well, good question. Yeah, so a lot of these systems have templates, and I mean, template, I guess, you know, from a commercial standpoint, there's a lot of template sites even today where, you know, you can go out and buy a template, and a lot of those are on
top of the website, right? So you can have your kind of your regular template, and you can put another template on top of it, right?
Right, and it'll kind of change the whole look and feel of the site, and so, you know, when you're browsing around on the web, obviously you know, as a business owner, you want a unique look. I mean you want your own brand. Some people don't. Understood. But you know, you most likely do. So what happens? I mean, the majority of people who contact me have already gone through a base level of the system and kind of played around enough with the templates and with the whole architecture and kind of figure out, oh, this is easy, it's amazing, I can add content, I can do this stuff, I can make pages, I can, you know, build a form, I can insert my video, and you know, it's like, awesome. And then at that point you're kind of hooked into the system. I mean, not through me, I don't have it, I'm not doing that, but it's pretty much like they will hit a wall of either like, it's either a design wall or it's that branding element that needs to kind of, you know, be applied to that template. And so being a designer and being kind of focused on working with those templates and working within that system of bringing that brand to the system, basically, then
yeah, the space that you have there.
Yeah, so that's why I get calls.
So you basically you put another level of flair, right? So that's where
right.
everything, it's all tied in, right? Okay, got it. You see, this is all making sense now. So you essentially there's a level of customization that people, some people need to make their site not look exactly the same as the other sites and a little bit different. Chip, so you've been doing the going around with websites. So what are your thoughts when you see websites, pediatricians' websites, and tell me a little bit about what your thoughts are on that sort of thing.
Well, the biggest mistake I see a lot of practices make is that they spend a lot of time doing and working on the parts of the website that they're not good at and only matter if you get it wrong, which is namely the colors and the fonts and the pictures. If you're a small private pediatric practice, the most important thing to have on your website is where are we, what insurance do we take, what kind of practice are we. You need to tell a very quick and important story. Moms are driving around and they want to find a parking space near your office. They need to know where you're located. They need to know when you're open. They need to know your phone number. And a lot of people miss that part of the story. They spend a lot of time worrying about the colors that are there and so on and so forth. And branding your practice is important. Don't get me wrong, but a key part of branding your practice, in my opinion, is, hey, we also want to be the smart practice and the one that's easy to work with. So that's the first thing. I know, and Alan, I'm sure you know that this is why Alan's employed. People totally underestimate how much time it takes to actually maintain a website. It's very easy to have great ideas and meet for coffee and let's draw something and let's get that up there, and then 3 hours later you realize, oh, there's way more to do than I thought. We are going to write a little paragraph about each of our doctors and where they went to school and maybe have pictures of our staff. That actually means someone has to take a good picture of the doctors, not just some iPhone shot. It actually means that someone who understands the rudiments of grammar needs to edit the section of the website that people are going to read, and that takes work. And where I think some of the fundamental value that someone like Alan brings to the table is that second set of professional eyes who will look at you and say, you know what, that's really not good enough. And right now, I'm not going to do it because we could do it on our app here, but we could start picking on some random pediatric websites around the country and saying, do you really think you should look at a spelling mistake? Do you think you should really have a picture with the cross-eyed doctor by accident up front? That's the stuff that Alan is going to help you get through. And the second piece is knowing that you have a professional you can work with when you say, hey, you know what, my site isn't working right now. Can you tell me what it needs? And that part helps. And Brandon, you're sort of in that in-between zone where you come from outside the pediatric practice world, and so you would apply your eye to your website, and you know that you needed to do something, and so you were saying you couldn't always accomplish it. Having someone like Alan get you across the finish line, that's a big piece, and I recommend strongly that people find a professional to work with. And Alan's right, the CMS world has made this so much more possible. Even 3 or 4 years ago, it would take twice as much effort to get a website than that you can get today. And to have Alan help guide you in and get you across the finish line, I think that's a great idea.
So I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you on something because I think that it's important to make this distinction because it goes a little bit against what I believe in terms of, and I'm almost positive that it goes a little bit against what Alan. But I'll ask him here in just a second if he's on my boat or on your boat. So you were talking about spending too much time on the colors and things like that, and the branding is important, but there are some key things that need to be in there. To me, it's like that's not even, that's not a question. You could have like a yellow page, because the yellow pages offers you a space online that with your subscription or whatever, they'll put you a place, and then you can have a telephone number, an address, and it's just a listing of your hours or something. Google Places does that. I mean, there's a lot of different things that if you just focus on that and to give merely the information on when you're open, there's places to do that. And I would, although I understand what you're saying in terms of not focusing on the important things, which I think is what you were, so I disagree with you, but I know where you're coming from. But this just makes a better podcast if I get to fight with you just a little bit.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
The branding is so, well, let me finish, wait 1 second. So the branding is so important because here's the thing. These young parents have grown up in this entirely different thing, that the world that we have, and they've been exposed to a lot of things. And as we move forward and we get even cooler tools and the internet becomes even awesomer than it is right now, they are going to be used to different things. So when they come to a web page and simply has these basic information, then I find that is not attractive at all. All of us have visited web pages, that is, they have the information that we need, but if it's not well designed, we automatically think it's a shady business. We're like, I don't know about this. This website doesn't look like it's well put together. So I wouldn't undermine the fact that an awesome looking website with awesome colors, with awesome fonts, and something that tells the story about your practice, like as soon as they arrive, they need to know to some extent what you're about. I mean, if you visit Dell's website and then you go to Apple's website, there is an immediacy of understanding what each company represents.
Okay, but here's the thing. And Alan, you're going to give me the thumbs up and thumbs down on this, all right? By focusing on the graphic design and the user experience, or let me back up. I'll restate the sentence. Most pediatric practices are really bad at graphic design. They don't have a graphic designer. It's just fun to play with. So it's not that I disagree with the result, Brandon. It's just that why would a pediatrician wake up and think, hey, today I'm going to design a website? They've never been trained on it. I bet it's 1 in 100 practices that actually has any graphic design capability whatsoever, and that's why you end up with sites that have neither good information nor good design. Leave the design in the hands of the professionals like Alan, all right, and let them manage that part. The part that Alan can't provide is the content, who you are and what you are. He can help guide you with the design element, but what I see I've worked with too many practices who feel like they are color experts, and that's what I mean. So they're focusing on a part that they're not good at and not really paying attention to the part they're best at and not letting a professional do the job that they're good at. Alan, what do you feel free to deny me. Go for it.
Oh, no, I totally agree. I mean, as a designer, it's hard sometimes for me to admit, but there's so many different levels that I see. I mean, you're right about the color experts or the design experts, or let's go see what the competitors are doing, which is actually a good thing to do. Maybe, I mean, it's like but in today's world, competitors are either local or they're in Australia. I mean it's like where are those people who have the information? But anyway, all that aside, I mean the content and the message is absolutely the most important thing. I mean even it could be the most fantastically, amazingly designed site in the world, and if the content isn't there, well, okay, obviously a designer made this on while he's working for someone else, and he's not really focusing on that. He's just playing around with something. Yep. So it's pretty easy to see kind of through that and see like, oh well, where's the message? Where's the content? Who is this person? Who is this company? And that's like a very first thing that needs to be found out. I mean, it's like, okay, who are you and what do you do? And that's a great thing to present to anyone. I mean you're going to walk up, you're going to drive by a pediatric practice, and if there's weeds growing and bushes and the place looks scary and it looks like a crack house, you're not going to take your kids there. It's like and it could be the same way with with your website, where you always want to focus on that initial first message. Be honest. It's you can usually tell if it's just very templated, or even / especially the content. I mean we've talked before, Brandon, about your industry, about how there's templating systems, or there's even content management systems that that specialize in medical or health sites, and then they also come with the package A of all the content that you need. So that's pretty easy to see. Although does the patient know? I mean, does the customer know? So I guess there's all those questions. But I guess
okay. So we agree for sure that the content, and I just want to talk a little bit about our experience in terms of how me and Alan work, and I think that this is, and you can add your 2 cents in terms of what you liked and what you didn't like about it. But so I absolutely agree with you, Chip. I focused a lot on the message. I spent a lot of time on trying to focus on the message, and being a marketing guy, I knew that I only had to narrow it down to maybe 1 or 2 messages. I couldn't. One of the things that I don't like, and this is just me, is like you have a list of we are accepting new patients. So I'm like, well, do I really need to say that if I'm doing an advertising? I mean, I'm looking for somebody. So why do I need to also put in the context? I'm accepting new patients. Well, I'm doing advertising, aren't I? I mean, so like that, I can take that away because I'm already implying it through it. Or accepting most insurance. Call us to know if we're, so that's like, well, if it's most of them, then don't say, I don't know. There's like different things like I don't need this, I don't need that, and I'm not saying that to those that do somehow is bad. I'm just saying that in terms of my message, that's how I started eliminating all the ones and then start again. So that's the one thing that I did, and I'm also very focused a lot on the look and feel when you come to a website. What is that? Before you're looking at anything, reading the content, what is the site telling you right there about that place? And then, of course, there was all this functionality. I thought about what were the reasons somebody would come to our site. So did they come because somebody told them, oh, I got a great pediatrician, they have a website, check it out? Or did they do a Google search for pediatricians and they found us that way? So that's another consideration that I made. And the other one is like, if I had the one most important customer that I would love to have every single day, and I would never, never be tired of having this particular customer, who would that person be? And that customer would be a pregnant mom and dad, a soon-to-be pregnant mom and dad with their first child. If I could have that person walk into my office every single day, a new one every single day, then that would be the holy grail. Okay. So I said, if that's the people that I want to attract, well then therefore my thought process has to be on this is the majority of the people. So I eventually came down to 2 things. I wanted to make it very appealing for first-time parents, and I also wanted it to be an extension for the established patients of the practice in terms of resources and information. So I already had that very clear, and then that's when I found, well, through the process, and Alan and I spent a lot of time, I'm describing what I just described to Alan. We probably spent hours, right, Alan? I mean, talking about who the person was, their ages, why would they find the website, what's the message, and I'm sure I went back and forth all the time where like, well, I wanted to say this, and then it's like, well, that's not, it also needs to do that. So not to hog the conversation, tell me a little bit about that experience, and if it was beneficial for you as a designer, if it's like, I don't want to have a customer like you ever again.
No. In fact, what you just said, I think is a fantastic point, because to know your audience, or maybe it's not your existing audience, but it's who do you want to be? It's like, I think knowing that is pretty important, because I mean, do you want to just keep doing the same old mundane thing, or do you want to like change lives? No, okay. Yeah. But I mean, it kind of comes down to that persona, though. I mean, like a good user experience term would be the persona, and when you talk about that website visitor, or even if you're blogging and if you're starting to write and things like that, it's always a good idea to kind of focus on that person. Take like an actual person and think, okay, John Smith, he's always honest with me. He's a real passionate guy. He's this, he's that. He's this age. He drives this car. Think of that person, and then whenever you're like writing or giving any sort of messaging on your website, if you always picture that same person, at least you're staying within that level of fidelity, I guess you could say, where you're going to always kind of hit that same mark, and you won't confuse yourself either, because you're kind of going to focus on that important customer, at least important to you, and be sure and track and see how you're doing and see where you're going.
What would you say would be the common, in terms of displaying a message? Do you find people come into different pitfalls when they want to convey something, and then they just doesn't, like, they come with preconceived notions, and then you have to kind of change? Do you have anything that you can share along those lines?
I guess maybe explain that.
In terms of messaging, so somebody says that they haven't gone through the process and they have, like, we want the website to do all these things, and you're like, well, okay, we need to scale back, or that doesn't necessarily represent well, because obviously you have to interpret what I'm saying, and you are the physical manifestation of my vision, right? I mean, this is
right.
And that's the other part that I didn't finish, is like, once I had that, then I gave it to you, and I'm like, okay, Alan, that this whole thought process that I'm having, this vision, I need you to physically represent it on this web page.
Yeah, and that's essentially what I do, kind of starting off with a client, is I will work on that whole look and feel portion first, and what sites do you love, Brandon? And you'll tell me what things are amazing to you, and maybe if there's something that's like, well, why do you like the Google site? It's like, what if that was your answer? And it'd be like, oh, well, I like it because of the white space. Or, there could be a number of reasons why you like it. So it's a matter of kind of solving problems, really. And then you might come with some ideas of things that you've seen. It happens a lot where there's like recent trends and things like that, where hopefully no one's going to say, I want a Flash preloader on my website, and I want to, press skip intro, and it's like, I will, hang up. No, I mean, but there's kind of a balance of education. I mean, the client should always kind of know, or my customer pretty much knows that, during our conversations, if there's something like that brought up, then, I'll kind of take a step back and loop around and kind of explain why Flash is probably not a good idea, because we want to be seen on like a mobile device, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of kind of push and pull, I guess you could say, but that's part of the whole process. Part of the process, the majority of the process, is about communication, and there's a little bit of design stuff there too, but it's all just it's about communication, trying to figure out, you said this, and I know that person that you're referring to. How does that connect? There's got to be a way to connect that somehow.
Yeah, the way I think about it actually is I like to tell people to use their website to set expectations. So let me give you 2 examples. So if you have a very nice office, it's a very friendly office, it's a very clean and shiny office, and your website looks dark or is filled with, I don't know, moving text or whatever, you've got a disconnect between the way your website looks and the way your office looks. Now, on the flip side, if you have a nice, clean, shiny new website and people come to your office and your office is not designed that way, for better or for worse, I think that creates a different disconnect. And that's why in my mind, one of the most effective things someone can do in their website is show their physicians and their staff and even their office itself, show some pictures of exam rooms. So people who are looking online for you know what they're getting. Because what the biggest problem you have from a customer service perspective is when someone expects X and you deliver Y. My more poignant example of that, it's one I try to tell people all the time, is to set your expectations clinically. So if you're an office who doesn't accept non-vaccinators, I think your website is one of the best places to tell people that, because you can dissuade the non-vaccinators from even picking up the phone to call you. I mean, Brandon, you can ask your wife, the worst time to find out that someone is a Jenny McCarthy follower is in the middle of your first exam. All right? It's too late. You just lost an hour of your life. And at best, you just lost an hour of your life.
Yeah, I bet.
So if you have clinical policies, if there's a style of medicine you like to provide, if there's something that distinguishes your office. So Brandon, I'm going to turn this back to you. If there is a look and feel and position or anything about your office that's special, your website is just one more venue to communicate it to people. It's not the place you should start communicating it. It's just one more venue to communicate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you've listened to any of my marketing talks, and I talk about storytelling, and the storytelling is really what makes the marketing outstanding and what's remarkable. And the story essentially has to be carried out in every single time you touch in our case, the patient or the customer. And the website, and when I mean touch, it's like when you encounter, and sometimes the encounters aren't physical, right? So we have the website where our representation of our website is actually encountering a person with us not being there, with the benefit of us saying, but look, we are cool people, or look, we are considerate people, or hey, we are, whatever the case, we are smart people. So if that's what we want to convey and that's who we are, then the website also has. That's why I wanted to, I was so interested in having Alan here, because being a designer, he's the one, and people like him, of course, but he's the one that can help us kind of take that, because like you said, Chip, I don't have the skill set, so I don't know what colors look good, or what font looks. I mean, when I see it, I'm like, that stinks, but I don't know, like the whole process and kind of go down like I'll know when I see it if it's good or bad, but I don't necessarily know everything else, right? So I think that's very important. Here's the other thing that I found when I was doing my research on websites. I don't think I saw a single pediatrician office that described what is it that they did. The assumption was that we know what pediatricians do, but I've spoken to people, and I'm like, I'm a pediatrician. I mean, or I work for a pediatrician. My wife is a pediatrician, and they're like, and that's a doctor, right? So what do you? So it's like a child's doctor, a kid's doctor, and they're like, oh, okay. You would think that everybody's seen a pediatrician, but for whatever reason, I don't know, not everybody does. So, or they think, they think that the pediatrician is the family doctor, right? Because when they were little, they might have gone to a family doctor as opposed to a pediatrician. So the assumption is that everybody knows what a pediatrician is, but if you will not go to a single website where they won't tell you immediately, well, I shouldn't generalize like that, because I'm sure somebody will find one like, Brandon, this doesn't say this, but every site you go to, for the most part, they bend over backwards to make sure that they let you know what it is that they do immediately. And here's the distinction that I want to make about the retail-based clinics, because all these people are always fighting about how these guys are eating our lunches and they're doing sleazy tactics. We, as pediatricians, do so much than just the simple sore throat. There's behavioral situation. We counsel kids through divorces, or provide resources in order for people to navigate through that. Behavioral issues. There's disciplinary guidance. There's education. There's nutrition. CVS doesn't do none of that stuff, as you know, Chip. And so, but there's nothing there on our websites that say, listen, you're going through a divorce. I have a class on helping kids cope with divorce. I mean, the AAP has tons of resources. They just put out this whole homosexuality thing, right? They put out a press release on how they support, same-sex marriages, and so that's something that pediatricians are starting to be more prepared to talk about, right? So there's just like this huge gamut of services and resources and support that pediatricians have the knowledge. They don't do it all, but they have the knowledge. They can be the coaches to help you walk through all these stuff. But then we'll put down something like, I don't know, I don't want to make a bad example. Well, just something that maybe doesn't necessarily move people to make a distinction. Why should I go to this place, whether go to a retail-based clinic? Because I tell you what, they're very good. Go to minuteclinic.com and they'll tell you exactly what they do.
Actually, Brandon, the one good example I've seen a couple times of pediatric sites that tell you exactly what they do. I've seen a bunch of them lately. It's all in the direct pay concierge websites.
Yes.
People who have a very, very strong sense of who they are and why they're in this business. And they say right up front, this is what we do, and this is how, and in fact, it's important that it's not a list of features. It's a list of the benefits that they provide to the patients. And so I think you're going to see a bit of a change in our business where the websites are going to get better. So Alan, I want to ask you a question, because I've done a lot of inadvertent website work in my time. Alan, back in the 90s, back when I typed in every little thing, okay? Yeah. And
Chip
so
was
I
one
have
of
a
the
lot
founding members of GeoCities, Alan.
oh yeah.
I was going to suggest tripod or something.
Oh no. Before all that, if you go to archive.org, you can go look up our old website sometime. You'll get a laugh. It was all done by hand in the good old days. So Alan, when you get a new customer, when someone calls you and says, I'd like to use your services, what are the first 2 or 3 questions that you ask people? Because you slipped a couple of them in, all right? But I want to know, like, what are the first 2 or 3 things that you ask people? Because I want the folks listening to this podcast to ask themselves these questions, so that when they go and make a phone call, when they try and get in touch with you or someone like you, that they already know these things and they're prepared, and they know if they don't get in touch with you, why isn't this guy asking me these questions? All right.
Yeah. So I guess, I mean, for me, for the people that I generally meet, they kind of go through my website first, so I can kind of get those things out in the front myself. So and those questions would be like, do you have a company? Is this a company site, or is it, but obviously that one doesn't apply.
Yep.
But I mean, it's generally, do you have a website now? Why is your website? Why do you want to look at doing a new website? What are the pain points on your current setup? And usually I can go look at the website, and basically, if they're able to give me enough information, then I'm interested. It's one of those things where if someone's just like, we need to redesign, let me know what it's going to cost. Okay, well, you're probably not going to get a call back. It's like,
right.
It's just someone who's out blasting that same sentence to every designer. But if you come and you tell me about your existing practice, your existing your problems, your patients, what patients do. I mean, do they book time online? Can they do that on your existing website? Would you like to do that? Are there areas that you want to have that are more fun? I mean, a pediatrician should probably focus on doing things a little bit on the lighter side, even where you might have, I don't want to say coloring books and things like that, but there's a lot of fun things you can do. I mean, have you seen those things? Do you find those things cheesy? I don't ask those on my form. Generally then I can get a lot of those kind of questions kind of up front, and I would hope that they're kind of telling me a lot from the get-go. And now I also want to know like what their budget is. I mean, I want you to know that the sites that are seen on my website that I've done in the past range from X to X. As far as that. So I mean, if there's a definite budget, and not saying that I'm just in this to make money. I'm actually in this to like totally do a turnkey kind of, we will start at the very ground level and work our way through. First, design something that you love, something that's fantastic, and that you would just, this is the site that you want, and then we build that within the platform, and then I'll train you how to use it. So throughout that process, I want to get as much information as I can, and even up front to kind of know, what we're going to be building, what we're kind of looking at.
When someone asks you, or actually the easier question is, what is the hardest thing to do that people typically ask you for? Like when you get that question, you have that internal groan, like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this.
I think like one of the big ones is, and this happens all the time, and I think people start to realize it, but I want to index in Google. I want to build a site for SEO. So it's like.
So explain real quick what SEO means.
Oh yes. So that's search engine optimization, and so everyone that has a website thinks that they need to appear on the home, on like page 1 of Google when searching for X. Fantastic. Everyone would love to. But what really needs to happen first, I mean, you can't just build a site and expect it just to blast out there, in the #1 spot of anything. What needs to happen first is you need to build the site for the humans. That's the important thing. I mean, we don't build sites for search robots. Google is actually the biggest blind user online, so Google doesn't know that your site is blue or white, black, whatever. It just sees the text. So you think, oh, the text. Oh, well, that's important, huh? The text is the most important thing because that is what if you want to talk about SEO, that's what goes out there. I mean, that text is what appears on Google, and
so the
why?
SEO essentially is the text that's on there. Then Google comes, looks at your website, and then makes a determination on
Correct.
what that website is about. So when later somebody searches for it, it says, "Hey, I know what you're looking for. You're looking for this guy over here." That's what. So the search engine optimization is making sure that you place the right words in all your content. So when Google comes and searches for you, then you'll have a better chance of showing up in the results, right? Is that kind of the essence of it?
Yeah, and it's kind of about the platform too. It's about allowing their computers to kind of come searching through the whole site, and they'll do that very quickly, and then they'll follow links, they'll look at headings and all kinds of code, and it'll be just a matter of saying here's everything mentioned on this site, and if this is all just like strategic meta tags or keywords that are just shoved into the site just to get that ranking, Google today knows that stuff is happening. But again, back up and think about the person on your site. The whole thing, I mean, that's like you're building a website for that person. You're not building it for Google.
Right.
So
I tell people, Alan, if you want to get ranked well on Google, make a nice website.
Yeah.
The fewer gimmicks, the less you worry about the gimmicks, and the more you worry about people actually using your site, the better you'll do on both counts.
Yeah.
The other thing
And
that
that's
I always
where
like the people want to search really high also in the results, and a lot of it has to do with having great content often up there. So if it's a static website that never changes, then you're not alerting Google. I've got some great stuff here. So that's another big part that people seem to miss. It's like, well, do you update? Do you have a blog? What's cool about your website that all of a sudden it needs to appear first?
Yeah, and that's what the ironic part is. Or I don't know if it's irony. I don't. This is not an English podcast. But it's like when it comes down to it, it's like what Google wants to see is more dynamic content, and what that is that text. And what is that text? It's from you as a person who's communicating with those people. So it's like, oh, so it's so far removed from technology, or it should be, that it should just be, here's my message, and here's me talking about the message. And if you're not a writer, there's a lot of us who aren't. I mean, I claim to be not a writer, so I'll like go through this thing where I'll make a draft post and I'm gonna write this thing, it's like, but it's really, really hard. so I mean, but there's content experts, there's even ghost writers that, I mean, the marketing world kind of knows at this point that ghost writers exist all over the place.
Right.
I've
Alan,
never like.
That's another example though of let the people who are good at particular tasks do tasks for you.
That's right.
So anyway, sorry.
The other thing, the real thing about the content, though, here's another thing. The expectation is that somehow you have to have this awesome written, Pulitzer Prize winning blog post or whatever the case might be. And that was my fear when I started my blog. But I finally said, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. And I'm not the best writer, and I don't consider myself.
Brandon can do it. Anybody can do it.
Exactly. But my thing is that, first of all, I don't really write for a lot of people. I really mostly write for me. And the fact that I put it out there is just a way for me to, like, hold myself accountable, right? So that I have another behind-the-scenes kind of ulterior motive for writing, but the other thing is that I figure that if somebody's gonna be picking at my writing, then that's not really the person that I'm writing for to begin with. So if somebody's going to be interested in knowing what interested about me, about what I'm thinking and things like that. So from somebody that doesn't know how to write, I don't think that should be a deterrent, because especially for a practice. If a doctor, everybody writes emails, though, right? And everybody tells a story about, oh, we had a great time and this and this and that. If you were to simply just take the time that you spent writing an email, writing about your day that day, it could also lend to a different type of personality that you are displaying on your website that is going to be helping you when people come to the website on finding out who it is. When we're talking about the message. Okay, so this is what this person is about. They're talking about there's a doctor a mother who's a business owner, who's a wife that actually goes and can't find time to work out either because her life is crazy and she's, so it's like, oh my goodness, that doctor is a real person just like me. So that's just one of the many examples that work. So anyways, I didn't want to cut you off about the writing, but for the people that are listening, I think that don't worry, just write, and then people will see, with your flaws, there's something cool about that you're not necessarily the greatest writer.
Yeah, I actually have a tip for that. I mean, there's a few things you can do where like Squarespace is pretty good about this. Is if you get the idea, if it's a topic, it's like head colds and what do they mean to your children? Okay, well there's a topic, so I'm going to go to the blog and make a draft with that title and then save it and push it aside, and then before you know it, you might have 10 or 12 draft just titles that are kind of like your to-do list, and once they're out there, you can kind of go, oh yeah, you can kind of write on that. Mm-hmm. But there's apps like I use Evernote all the time. I mean, I didn't used to use it, and then for the past 6 months now, it's like we should
probably have a podcast just of Evernote because I think this would be an awesome tool for everybody.
Oh yeah, and it's to a point now where any email that I'm writing, I mean, we talked about, let's not do the Flash preloader on a website, and so I will basically write a blog post. But it's an email. It's like I'll have this, and I spend so long, because I don't know if it's ADHD or what it is, but I will spend so long working on that and making sure this message is the perfect message in an email. Yeah. And then I realize I'm doing that, so I go ahead and copy and paste it out to Evernote to use, and then add those tags that I can search for. Why not to use Flash? And then I'll be able to find that content and paste it and put it in there. So it's like that. Yeah. That same kind of technique you can use on your website for all your web content too, because it's all stuff that you've either found or wrote or just snagged at some point.
So my last question for you is, I asked you, what's the most difficult thing that someone asked you to do? What is your, when you're designing a website, what's your most favorite part of the process?
I would say, it's an interesting question because it, I intentionally try and make my job as interesting as possible, and that would go from the, working on the phone for doing a first business consultation thing, and then going into design and putting on my coding hat. Now I'm doing development at this point. And then finding out that, oh wow, I got to do more business development. Oops, that's the it's like a big cycle of a whole bunch of fun spinning plates. But I would say it is probably that initial conversation where we're trying to get to know each other and then figure out a way to nail down something that we want to do, or like solve a problem. And it's that initial design of coming up with that first thing that we all kind of like, oh, that's it, let's do it. That's kind of the highlight, I think. And that needs to happen more often. But
yeah, the other thing that I wanted to jump in there, but you mentioned about creating your own content and the content management, and then also with your kind of the expertise that you lend. The company that you use, and just kind of to describe this, so there's a company that's a content management system. That company is called Squarespace. You can go to squarespace.com and you can look. Now that company offers beautiful templates, so it's not that we are knocking templates. Templates, they look beautiful, and they also give you a level of customization that you can do on your own. So if you want to do it, then you can do it and still create a beautiful site, easy to manage and everything. And this isn't a Squarespace commercial, but there are many like that. You mentioned WordPress. You can mention, I don't know, there's several out there that you can search. So that's not the issue. Now, if you want something a little bit more customized, then of course that's where Alan comes in. But there is still a way for you to do it on your own, that you don't need somebody like Alan to come in and make it prettier. I happen to think that I like that expertise and just being able to have somebody help me out through the process. So that's what I wanted to and then your company essentially builds upon the foundation of this content management system. So that's kind of the dynamic of all this. Chip mentioned, of course, there's Pediatric Web, and there's a few others, right, Chip, that do specific for pediatric and also have content that they create for you, so you can post on your website, which is also a great alternative. But we hope that with this discussion, we were getting down to the essence of what it is to create a website. It's not just simply putting something up on there and not really thinking about it, thinking about the message, thinking about what you're trying to convey, and the different alternatives, whether it's go full-on design and create something cool for your parents, or just simply, but I think that the message that we want to say here is that the website and having an online presence is so important, and more important than it was before, because of what's happening in the internet, and two, because our parents have the expectation that we have more stuff online, because these are the people that bank online, they buy things online, they do everything online. So it just makes sense for them for your pediatrician to also be online in a unique way. Chip, do you think anything else to add, or would you want to chime in here, or what are your thoughts?
I guess I would conclude by saying there's so many more options today for pediatric practice to do a website properly than there were just a couple years ago, that you have no excuse. And whether or not you go out with one of the big, sort of templated solutions, and by that I mean the Pediatric Webs of the world, who are great, okay, or you do it entirely yourself, or you do it yourself with some professional help like Alan provides. I think we are so far into the 21st century that not doing this properly only makes you look bad. And given that people having children right now grew up with the web, only know the web, only know their smartphones, I think you're gonna, if you're not on top of this, you're gonna distance yourself from the very people you need to attract to your business. So this is crucial work, and this is a subject we're gonna want to return to in the future.
Yeah. Alan, what's the main website again? Give it to us, so if anybody wants to check out your work and everything that you do.
Yeah, I'm over at squareflair.com.
Squareflair.com, excellent.
Squareflair.com. And that's F-L-A-I-R, correct?
Yep. Yeah, either way works, but yeah.
Oh, well done. All right. That's the way I do, Alan. That's why I asked the question.
I think I have to check my domains and make sure I'm up to date.
And we just reminded something for Alan to do right after we finish up here. All right, well, I think that is going to do it for today, huh, Chip? I think, I don't know what we have lined up for next time, but it can only be better, right?
Who knows? Who knows? Well, Alan, thank you for your time today. I appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.